Welcome to the Childcare Business Coach podcast with Evelyn Knight, where mindset mechanics come together for success. Evelyn Knight is the leader of the ECE revolution and is on a mission to touch 1 million children's lives through the elevation of the ECE community.
Good morning, everybody. If you're just joining me for the first time, my name is Evelyn Knight. I am the Childcare Business Coach. I'm the founder and CEO of Childcare Business Professionals, which is a company that helps owners learn how to navigate being a childcare center owner. I also help directors learn how to successfully direct their teams. And I really focus on just taking the stress out of that. I am an owner and a former director, so I do know the routine that way. I just like to make sure I bring more to the ECE world. I want to uplift and make it a better place for all children all around the world. I am a center owner, like I mentioned, and I'm also the host of the Childcare Business Coach podcast. So today we are going to be talking about decluttering your mind. There is so much going on in the world today, and I am just feeling the stress and the pressure around me. I really limit the amount of time I allow myself on social media. But when I am on social media, no matter what platform, you can just feel the tension, right? And so that is just something I want to really talk about today, because we cannot be effective leaders if we're allowing all of this outside noise to control us and to really take us over. But before we get into that, I do want to mention to you guys that next week we are having our enrollment boot camp. It is the proven childcare enrollment formula. Basically, I will be teaching you guys next week the techniques we use at my own childcare center that has gotten us to become a center with a very long wait list. So make sure, if you don't have a sign on your calendar yet, if you have not registered, let us know. One of my team members can drop the link for registration in the comments right now, and we can get you registered. But again, all of next week, we are going to be doing the enrollment boot camp. So if you're struggling with enrolling, and more importantly, if you're struggling with retaining, let me know. Retaining is really the key. Enrolling is really just that first step. But what's more important is, once you get the children there, how do we make sure we don't lose them? And it's all the same thing. When you get all these different pieces in place in your program, it is amazing how everything will change for you. You'll start retaining the children. You'll start retaining staff. Enrolling, believe it or not, the techniques I'm going to teach you will also attract people who will want to work for you. So that is what we're focusing on next week. It really is a game changer. It's what I did in my own childcare center. So I don't bring you anything that I haven't tried myself first. So make sure that you join us next week. But now let's get back into decluttering your mind, because if you are anything like me, outside noise can be exhausting, and to the point that it can become crippling. And I know I can become so obsessed with what's happening in the world that I lose track of the things I should be doing on a day-to-day basis. Lately, especially, I have been just consumed with what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens, right? Life every day is hard enough. We deal with enough as leaders of ECE programs, as leaders with whatever you do in life. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom who is taking care of children, we deal with enough. And then you put what's going on in the world into the mix, and it just creates this huge snowball effect of stress and anxiety. But one of the things I want you guys to really think about and understand is 80% of what we worry about statistically never actually happens. Think about how much of your personal energy, your brain power, the time you let these things consume your mind, and 80% of it never actually even happens. So you're wasting all of that energy and space in your life. You're allowing it to give you feelings and emotions. You're allowing it to dictate the choices you make, to paralyze you at times. You're allowing it to stop the actions that you can be taken. And 80% of the time, it doesn't even happen. 80% of the time, it's just a worry that never even happens. Fear is very real. It's very big, and it can be crippling, and it can stop us from being the people we need to be. So I really challenge you to really learning how to silence a lot of what's in your mind and focus on what's before you. It is overwhelming. I agree. I have had a really hard time with this. I actually had to consciously stop watching the news. It's probably been over a year, probably well over a year now, that I just couldn't handle the news anymore. And I just realized that a couple things on that. Everything goes on anyway. If I'm obsessing over a typhoon or a tsunami that happens in Japan, that I cannot help. I have no impact on that. I don't know anyone there. There's not much I can do other than donate some money. Yet things like that, I'm allowing to consume my thoughts, everything I do, what's going on in my own life. How am I really affecting the world around me? How am I affecting my own life? The people that I actually love and I should be serving, right? Because I'm obsessed and allowing these other things that have nothing to do with me control my life. So right now, we know the situation in Ukraine, right? Of course, there's always the COVID scares that are happening and the obsession that we have in our media with what is going on. And yes, we do need to be aware of these things, but we don't need to be obsessed. We do not need to let these things control our lives, because what's happening when we do is we are not showing up as the best versions of ourselves, right? What is going on is very scary. It is absolutely scary. I know New York City is kind of at a standstill because of the high threat level. There's just a lot going on. But how is it really affecting your day-to-day life, right? Might it affect our day-to-day life 3 months from now, 6 months from now? It might, but it might not as well. So why are we going to put all this energy and stress and anxiety into these issues if they never actually come to fruition? Maybe we should stress about it when it actually happens, right? Otherwise, you're just wasting your energy. So a couple points I want to make for you guys today to really help you to know, what should I be paying attention to? What shouldn't I be paying attention to? Where should I be putting my energy? I want you to really think about, who are you? Do you know your worldview? Do you even know what a worldview is? Your worldview is basically going to be the lens that you see the world through, right? Somebody living in a different culture, like let's say Russia, for example, right now is a good example. They have a totally different worldview. Their perspective is completely different than ours, right? It's how they see the world, the things that they believe. Let me give you guys a great example of this. My son and I were talking, and perception is huge, right? In places like Russia, excuse me, I might need a sip of my water. In places like Russia, if you almost cause a car accident, you can be prosecuted for that. You didn't actually do it, but you almost accidentally hit a car. You can actually be arrested and prosecuted for that. In the United States, we would see that as crazy. It didn't actually happen. You're being punished for a crime that didn't happen, right? But to people in Russia, that is totally normal and totally acceptable. That is their worldview. And remember, that is just a slight example on different worldviews, right? So it's important for you to know, when you're deciding, how am I going to proceed in the world? What information am I going to let into my life? And what information am I just going to ignore? know your worldview, know what your values are, know what you really want out of life, know what is important to you. And those are the things you're going to really focus on. You're going to fill your world with those things that actually elevate you, not things that might be tearing you down. Now, I do want to caution you. I don't want to encourage you to have tunnel vision. It is important for us to be aware that there's other worldviews, to honor those other worldviews, and to respect those other worldviews. But I wouldn't put more stock into that than studying them and making sure that you can have an appreciation or respect for the fact that people do have different worldviews, and that's okay. But when you know your worldview, you know what you believe in your heart. You really know what you're driving. You know what your values are. You'll really get a better understanding of your personal life purpose. And when you understand your life purpose, you're going to have an easier time knowing, I don't need to know about that today. I don't need to know what's going on in Ukraine. Don't need to know it today. The news will find me. The news always gets to us, you guys. You don't need to seek it out, right? We don't need to go looking for it. It always finds us in our society today. So knowing what is really important to you and what is your purpose, and asking yourself, is spending the time obsessing about even COVID-19, the news, politics, whatever. Does this serve my purpose? Does the time I spend allowing this to consume me serve my purpose in life? Does the energy I'm allowing these issues to just suck out of my life, is it really serving my purpose, right? That is what is so important, is focusing on those things that are really serving your life's purpose. And in order to know that, again, you've got to know, what is your worldview? What do you believe in? What do you value? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? And if it doesn't fit that, then don't give it your energy. Don't give it your energy. And remember, 80% of what we worry about never happens. 80% of your worries are a waste of your time. So the other thing I want to leave you guys with as well is, I want you to really think about the media. If you are on social media all the time and you're just going through your streams, you're really filling yourself with a lot of negativity. If you are obsessed with watching the news, I can tell you, I was obsessed with the news for years. And I'm talking about most of my adult life. I always had the news playing on in the background. I really believe that being an informed person was vital to being a whole successful person. And one day, gosh, it might have even been about 2 years ago, I just realized I can't handle this anymore. There is too much going on in my own world for me to really just bring on everything that's going on in the news as well, right? And so I made a conscious decision, and that I had to stop. And it was like an addiction. And let me tell you, the media gets paid to make it like an addiction. You guys really think about it. What is their job? Their job is to sell us stories. Their job is to sell advertising, right? They're in the money-making business. So the more sensationalized, the more they can get you hooked on being glued to your screens, whether you're listening to the news, you're watching the news, it's popping up on your social media. The more they can get you to look at it, the more money they're making. Really think about that. They get paid to create fear and to sensationalize and to get you stuck on it. Have you noticed in the last, I would say, COVID really made it become apparent, but it's been longer than that. There's always some huge dramatic disaster happening. There is always. Things haven't changed. This is normal. It's the normal course of human history. People think things are so bad today. I can tell you, one of my first college majors was history. And it really isn't any different. To a certain extent, things are a lot better than they have been most of history. The difference is that we are so information overloaded, and we've been just so wrought with all this information being thrown at us that it just feels so huge. If you look at human history, there are very little pockets of time when there was actually no war. It is actually less likely to live in a period of peace than it is to live in a period of war if you look at the world, right? If you look at history as a whole. But we have been so conditioned to, oh my gosh, this is the next huge thing, and we need to worry, and we need to be concerned, and we need to, that we are just so used to that now that we don't really get it. We think we're living in this awful world because of information overload. I really want that to stick with you guys. Is it worth it? Is it really worth your energy, your time to allow all of this noise into your brain, right? When my husband got very sick, I just couldn't handle one more thing. And I really knew that if I was going to keep my businesses going, if I was going to be able to take care of him and just be a mom and just live my everyday life, as stressful as it was, I knew I was going to have to detach myself from what was happening in the world. And since I have so many years ago, things really are obvious to me now. And it doesn't matter what news channel I turn on. It doesn't matter what side I'm on. Every time I just think, I'm just curious. I used to love this show. Let me put it on and see. I notice how dramatic they are now. I didn't notice it then when I was addicted. Even when I don't really even allow myself to scroll through social media anymore. I give myself about 30 minutes a day, period. And that's it. Because otherwise you get obsessed and it just consumes you and there's so much negativity, right? But when you really detach yourself and you come back into it, even if it's just for a minute to glance at it, you realize how almost high schoolish it is, how dramatic, how overly dramatic and negative. Everything is so negative. And it's because that's what sells. That's what makes the money, right? But even if you look through, scrolling through social media today, I really want you guys to pay attention. There are a lot of things out there right now that are really focusing on positivity and uplifting, but there's an equal amount of things that is just full of despair and, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And here's the next disaster. And here's the next thing we've got to obsess and worry about, right? And then you also have those people who are posting on how awful life is. And, oh my gosh, I've got this victim mentality that I'm stuck in and life is just happening to me and I have no control. Well, when that's what's coming into your brain all day long, of course you're going to be exhausted. Of course you're going to have a negative mindset. Of course you're not going to be able to move forward. So my challenge to you this week as I wrap up is to figure out how to declutter the noise, quiet your mind, get all of that out of there. If you have things in your feed that are negative, block it, delete it. I think I hit mute. Sorry, guys, but I'm sorry. I was saying there are ways that you can silence your feeds without defriending your friends, right? You can silence certain things and put them on mute so that they are not overwhelming your social media, right? So that you're not filling yourself with that negativity. When I say this, every single one of you is going to have someone that pops into your head. But each one of us has that person in our feeds that we know beyond the shadow of a doubt, if they pop up, it's going to be something that has happened to them. It's going to be that, oh my gosh, this is happening to me again. Life is so rough, right? Because they're stuck in a victim mentality. Or you're going to have that person who's constantly posting those negative posts that they think are funny, right? That negativity. Passive aggressive negativity is also really not good for us. I know a lot of people think, oh, I'm just joking. But those negative jokes, it's just passive aggressive behavior. And we need to stop making room for those things in our lives. We really need to just look deeply at, okay, what is not serving me? What is not aligned with my purpose? What is really something I really shouldn't be worrying about right now, right? Because I have a childcare center to run. I have a family to raise. I have real life things that are actually tangible in front of me. Not that the stuff going on with Ukraine isn't tangible, it is. But remember, 80% of what we worry about never happens. It never actually comes to fruition, right? So, are you really going to put so much of your stock into what's happening, or should we just wait? I mean, what can we do? Let's see. I agree with you. However, as Russia does a nuclear war, we need to have things in place to make sure the kids are fine with us. Okay, that's great. So take action, create a plan to make sure the kids are fine. But to be honest with you, if Russia attacks us nuclearly, what are we really going to do? How much control do we have over that? How are we really going to handle that? And honestly, if you really talk to experts with all of the anti-missile things that we have in place, is it really going to happen? I mean, on how many times have we sat through history and been scared of things like this that never actually happen, right? But if it's something that's really, really, really concerning you, then come up with a plan. Don't obsess. Don't allow yourself to obsess. Come up with an action plan. Do something that makes you feel better about it. What is it that you think you can put into place in your center to reassure you and make you feel better? Can you come up with a disaster kit? So if the children are stranded in your center, you can bunker in place, basically. What kind of things do you need to put together? Water, food, supplies. I know my center, we have to have it anyway, where we have, like, just in case there's some kind of chemical, we have to have like the plastic for the windows that we duct tape around all the windows. We have to have an extra supply of water, some food, snacks. What are things like that? And then when you get your plan in place, let it go. Don't obsess. Don't let this become a part of your everyday life. You've done what you can. I think what makes a lot of this so hard is that it's something we have no control over, right? And it's very, very hard on us when we feel like we cannot control something. So do what you can to feel in control. If coming up with a plan and putting things in place makes you feel better and makes you feel like you have some kind of control over the situation, then absolutely do that. Do what you need to do for you. But once it's done, stop obsessing, because you can't change it. You cannot change what's going to happen. We can't, there's nothing we can do, right? Yes, we can be ready, but once you're ready as we can be, I mean, honestly, how does somebody really get ready for this? But as honestly, if you get as ready as you can, right, then move forward with your life, because there's a good chance nothing's going to happen. And if it does, we will deal with it then, right? We will deal with it at that point. But what my point today isn't not to be ready. I'm not saying don't come up with a plan. Don't prepare. What I'm saying is don't obsess. Don't make this so obsessive for you that every morning you have got to look at the news before you go to bed. Or, right before you go to bed, you have to watch the news. That was me 2 years ago. I never turned the news off. But I'm here to tell you right now, yes, we're in this crisis right now, but there is always a crisis. The news gets paid to create crisis, right? And yes, this is a real crisis. I'm not saying it's not. But even if there's positive things coming out right now, first of all, they twist it into a negative, right? They want to create fear in us because it keeps us hooked. I mean, did you guys know that during times of crisis, sponsorship prices actually go up? They charge more to their commercials during times of crisis because they know people are obsessed with watching. So absolutely be aware. I'm not saying not to be aware. Like I said, the news finds me. I don't need to obsess over it for it to find me. So yes, be aware, come up with a plan, be prepared, but leave it at that. Don't ruin your life obsessing. Don't waste days obsessing over what is happening. If you are getting to the point where you have to know what's going on, you have to have the news on all day, every day, you have to be checking your social media, that's when it's crossed the line of unhealthy, right? And what I can tell you is just put time limits. For me, again, I do like a 30-minute time limit. If I watch the news, I might watch an hour of the news a day. And then I do 30 minutes of social media, and that's it. I really just, when I was weaning myself off, because I cannot tell you guys how obsessed I was. I mean, literally from the moment I woke up, the news was on. I would channel surf to make sure I'm getting all the different perspectives till the moment I went to bed, right? And I would literally like put timers on my TV to fall asleep. So I knew always, I was so informed, and I would literally go from this news channel to that news channel to make sure I was hearing everybody's perspective. And it wasn't doing anything for me. It was just making my life miserable, to be honest. It was taking me away from my children, my businesses, and it was really putting my mental energy somewhere it did not need to be. And a lot of the things that I used to obsess about, and sometimes, yes, it's very real. Like the thing that keeps coming to my mind is when Japan had that tsunami. That was very real. It was horrible. It was awful. But it wasn't affecting me personally, right? And it wasn't anything I could do about it. Yet I was obsessed because of the suffering that was happening. So just keep it into perspective. I mean, yes, we need to be aware, but be careful what you're allowing. And again, that's also the people around us, not just the news, but those negative people around us who just drain the life out of us, right? We just don't need that energy in our life. I can tell you guys, as somebody who went through a very traumatic experience, when you get to that point where you have no choice but to put your energy into that which sustains, right? When my husband was sick and I was his full-time nurse, I couldn't. And even now, you guys, as somebody, my husband passed away 7 months ago, I still don't have the energy, right? And I understand and I see, and I have a very different perspective now on what I was allowing to take my energy. And when you go through things like that, you really start realizing there's things that you've got to cut out of your life. And to be honest with you, I wish I had done it sooner. I wish I had done it years before, so that energy I wasted, I could have given to my family instead. So think of those energy drains and don't be afraid to cut them out. It'll just make your life a lot more peaceful. And it's okay not to be obsessed. And for me, I felt awful in the beginning when I wasn't obsessed with the news. But it is okay. The news will find you. You will hear about it. The important parts will come to you. You won't be totally blindsided. And if you feel like you will, just put a time limit every day on how long you'll allow yourself to be engulfed in that world. So I hope everybody has a great week. I hope everyone can just not worry so much. There's so much for us to worry about in this world. We don't need more. So until things we know for sure, try not to let it dictate your life. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and let me know if message me or anything if you guys would like to discuss anything. Bye.
Thank you for joining Evelyn today. For more information, please visit childcarebusinessprofessionals.com.